Today we're looking at Canvas quizzes. This is Canvas's way of giving different kinds of assessments. You can use it as a formative or summative assessment, but they're essentially, how you give students questions, they get to answer them, and then Canvas has ways to automatically grade them or for you to go in and manually grade if need be. So the first thing you're going to do is add it just like you would anything else. Go to your module within your course. Up at the top, instead of an assignment, we're going to add a quiz. Then we can go to create quiz. It's going to give you two options to pick from for quizzes, new quizzes and classic. Some people like the classic better than the new quiz, but the classic quizzes are, as of this recording, going to be gone within a year. So I would recommend just going and doing new quizzes for everything, because while they may push that back again, because they have in the past, it may actually be on by the time you get around to using them. So we're just going to do new quizzes. You'll give it a name, so we'll call this sample quiz. You do have the option here, if you want to go ahead and change which group it goes under for grades, you can do so. So I'm going to go ahead and put it under homework, because why not? Indent it if you want. We'll add it. Then go find it. Open it up. You have a lot of the same settings that you would for assignments, so we can give it a certain amount of points that we want. You can change the assignment group again, how you want the points displayed, whether it counts or not. The submission type is locked in because this is a very specific kind of tool that Canvas uses, so you can't touch any of those settings. Whether you want it to sync to SIS or not, you have the same assignment settings, so this is a great way if you have multiple quiz versions for, let's say, modified students with IEPs and 504s versus the students who take the normal standard test. You can assign it to just those who have the modified, or just those with the standard, or if you have some other kind of system, you can assign it to specific people. So whenever you've got this all set up, you're going to hit the build button down here on the top right, or the bottom right, excuse me. So this is going to open up Canvas's quiz engine. And so this is a pretty simple setup that they've got here. So they've got the title. It's going to match whatever the title was that you originally set up. If you would like to change it though, you can just click in there and you can type whatever you want. So you can give it a little more detail if you want, or if you want it to be different for some reason, you can change it there. If you want to give quiz instructions, you can either click on add instructions or the little pencil item here. But this is just going to be the instructions for them to do stuff. So you can type in, answer all the questions. You can do the different types of, you can insert a table if you want, as big of a table as you want. You can put certain media in here. So you can put in images, you can put in a video if you want it to have video directions for whatever reason, or just audio too. You got some options there. There's also insert or edit link. So if you want to put in a hyperlink, I would recommend not doing that if you're doing something that is a summative where you don't want them going out of Canvas and going into other tabs. So if you have them using Secure Exam, which locks them down, that button is going to be pretty much useless. So unless you're okay with them going to different tabs and you're not going to have them lock their browsers down, I would stay away from that. So you can put in whatever directions you want there. Just click outside the box when you're done. Anytime you want to add a question, there's going to be this blue circle with a plus sign in it. So we're going to go ahead and add content. And then you have a bunch of different options here. So these 12 options are all 12 of the different types of questions that Canvas offers. So we'll go through them one at a time. So first off is categorization. So this would be something where you want them to sort out things by different categories. So maybe you're wanting to do fruits and vegetables or something like that. So first off, at the top, there are question titles. These, in my opinion, are actually kind of useless, and Canvas does not require you put them in, and students won't necessarily see them. This is entirely for your benefit. For those who are really, really organized and they want to see, like maybe you want to label this as nutrition question number 1 or something like that. You could give it that title. But again, it is by no means necessary to do. What is necessary is this question stem. This is where you're going to put the actual question in it. And this is how all of the questions go for Canvas. All 12 of those different things are going to use this format, where you can give it a title if you want. That's really just for teacher purposes and organization. The question stem, that's where the important stuff is. That's what the students are going to be looking for, reading in order to answer the question. So, we'll just say categorize these as fruits or vegetables. So we've got category 1. You give it a description. So we're going to call this one our fruits. Category 2, we're going to call this our vegetables. And so we can type in our different answers. So for fruit, we'll put apple. If we want to add more answers, we can do that. So we'll add an answer. We can put a pear here, add another one, and we'll put a grape. For vegetables, let's go carrots, broccoli. So you can add as many as you want. They do not need to be an even number. If you ever decide that you don't want something in there, you just hit the trash can button and it'll go away. If you want more than 2 categories, you just hit this add category button. And now I have a 3rd category, so we can call this meats. And then we could add stuff in here, so pork and beef. You also have the ability to add distractors in too. So these are going to be things that will not fit under any of the categories. So distractors are going to be good if you want to make sure that kids are really paying attention and not just filling in random things. So if we put in, let's say, a Laffy Taffy, it's obvious. Well, some kids might call that a fruit. But you can put things in there that do not fit under the categories, and students will just simply not drag those over. For options, you can show an on-screen calculator. So for this particular question, students will be able to access a calculator. Align to outcomes. If you want to add outcomes in there, so it's kind of like standards and stuff like that, you can do that. I've never known any teacher to deal with that. And then there's item banking. If you want to add this question to an item bank, that way you can go back later. Let's say maybe your final is made up of all of your tests. Instead of having to redo all those questions, you can add it to a bank. And in the next video, I'll show you how to take things from your bank and add them into your thing. So you can add them to an existing bank. So you can go through and you can see all of the different banks that you've got already set up. So maybe I want to add this to my sample bank. So you could do that and hit add, or you can add it to a new bank and give it a title. I already have a sample bank, so this will be the sample. And hit add, and now that is in my sample bank. If you want to go back and edit it, since I did add it to a bank, it's not going to let me do it within the quiz because now this question doesn't belong to the quiz, it belongs to the bank. So that is one sort of downside. So we could go to edit and bank. It'll open up over here, so we still, haven't had to leave. It's just going to be a little bit of an additional step. But we can go through, we can change answers around, change spelling mistakes if we made them, change the options and things like that. So we'll hit done, close out of that, and then we'll add on a new question. So that was categorization. Next is essay. Essay is pretty standard. Let's say write a paragraph about the symbolism and the scarlet letter. I don't know if it's supposed to be capitalized. I don't teach English. So for options, this is what the students are going to have available to them. So show on-screen calculator. Don't know that you need that in an essay, but you could do that. Rich content editor, that is this stuff up here at the top. So if you want them to be able to change their font, underline, highlight, add in tables, insert media and all that different stuff, you can click that. If you just simply want them to type text, you can uncheck that and it's not going to show up for them. Spell check, if you want it to check their spelling form, you can check that. If you want spelling to be part of the thing that you're assessing, leave it unchecked. Show word count, so it shows them how many words they've had. So if you put a word limit on there, that'd be a good thing to put so students know how many they have. and set a word limit, this will keep them within a certain range. So you can give them a minimum word limit. Let's say it needs to be at least 50 words. So if they don't have 50 words typed, let them submit the question. And let's put the limit at 500 words. If they go past it, again, I won't let them submit it. Some grading notes, you can put some notes in here for, what are the things that you're looking for, stuff like that. Aligned outcomes, item banking are the same things there. So we're going to hit done. Oh, and you can also change the number of points. You could do that on the categorization one as well too. Maybe I want this to be worth 4 points. So we'll hit done. And there we go. And so this is what students are going to see. So they're going to see, since I put the word count and the limit on the word count, they'll be able to see, okay, I have this many words. This is my range or my limit for what I'm allowed to do. For the next type, we got file upload. This one's pretty simple. This one I used a lot when we were teaching virtually during COVID stuff with my physics and AP physics kids, because physics is not an easy thing to do online. So I had them do workout problems on paper, and then they had to upload the pictures of all of their work and stuff this way. So determine the speed of an unladen swallow. So they gotta figure out whether it's African or European first. But anyway, so got some options. Again, the calculator, limit the file number. So how many things are they allowed to upload? Do you want them to just upload one single thing? 2, 3. If you leave this unchecked, they can upload as much stuff as they want. Realistically, there's probably not a reason to check that unless you're looking for something specific. Restrict file types, so they can only upload certain things, just kind of like on the online submission for assignments. You can limit and say, I only want them to submit JPEGs or something like that. So any kind of file they try to upload that is not a JPEG is not going to work. Usually Canvas is pretty good though about being able to see all the different file types, so I usually leave that off. And then again, align outcomes, item banking, point values, and done. And so what they'll see, they can either drag and drop a thing if they're not in the secure exam kind of thing, or they can browse to try to find whatever it is on their computer. Fill in the blank. So for this one, it says type a statement and surround a word with backticks. Backticks are, it took me a little while to figure this out, are on the top left corner of your keyboard, right next to the 1. It's like the apostrophe, but it like goes the other way. So let's say Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. And we'll say fill in the blanks above. So let's say we want them to know that they went up a hill, so put backticks around the hill, and they needed to fetch a pail of water. So you've got some different options here. One would be open entry, meaning that students will simply just have a blank spot to type something in, and they have to type whatever was matching. So one option is looking for where it contains hill. So just simply having the word hill in there somewhere. So they could type out the entire thing, that Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. And as long as the word hill is in there somewhere, it's going to count it as correct. You can do close enough. There's this Levenshtein distance or something like that. This is just a statistical thing for how far off are they allowed to be. So you can change that number to change what that is. You can also make it look at just spelling. So if you're wanting to ignore cases, so if you don't care if they capitalize proper nouns or whatever, you can check that. If you do care about the proper noun stuff though, leave it unchecked. Exact match, they have to type hill. If it's anything other than H-I-L-L and they have different punctuation or capitalization, it's not going to count as correct. Specify correct answers. So for those of us who know our kids are not going to be great at spelling, maybe they're going to spell hill as H-I-L. You could add that in there. and it's going to count that as a thing. And again, they're going to have to still type in the exact answer, but as long as it matches one of these things, so they could type either of these in and it will still give them full credit. And then regular expression match, that's just, again, looking for something within that. You can also do a drop down. So you could give them basically like a multiple choice question. So you could type they went up a hill, or they went up a mountain, or maybe they went up a roof. You could add something in there if you wanted to, but this essentially makes it a multiple choice within this fill in the blank. Or you could do a word bank. So where it's going to, the correct answer would be hill, but you can add different things in and they'll have to grab from the word bank and match, okay, this one goes with here, this one goes with here. So this is it makes it kind of like a matching kind of question. So we're gonna make this a drop down. And we'll put a mountain, we'll get rid of this. And then everywhere that you put those backticks, Canvas automatically knows, okay, that's gonna be a blank. So it automatically figured out hill was one of the words, and it automatically found out water was one. Again, same options down here. We'll leave it as 1 point. Done. And so you can see from what the students are going to see, there's going to be this drop down arrow, so they know, okay, I need to click here, and it's going to give me a list of things to choose from. For this one, they're going to click in it, and it's just going to come up with a blinking cursor for them to type. Then we've got formula. So this is going to be for the math people. So for our question stem, we're going to use backticks for whatever we want our variables. So let's say, what is the product of, and so we're going to say, let's say odd for odd number, and no, let's go of, we'll just call it X, and let's just call that Y. So Canvas knows, because you put backticks in there, that there are two variables it's looking for, and it will recognize whatever variable you put in there. So with me doing physics, I'll sometimes do velocity, and it tells me whenever I go to plug stuff in that I'm looking for velocity. So you can give it a range from a minimum of 0 to 10 or the standard, but you could go -10 if you want to give them negative numbers. And then let's say we want to keep it negative, so we'll go -1 as the max, or maybe they want to go from 1 to, and there is a limit on the numbers. I don't know what it is, but we'll go to 1,000 here. If you want it to have decimal places, you just state how many decimal places that you want each number to have. Then the formula definition, this is where it's going to be really important. So for one, you need to make sure that you make the variables down here exactly the same as they are above. And if you do this wrong, it will tell you that it does not like what you have. So since we're doing the product, velocity and Y are being multiplied together. So we'll do velocity, and then you do the little asterisk sign for multiplication. If you want to do addition, it's plus sign, subtraction is hyphen, division is the slash. And then you can do like the little caret symbol on the 6 button for exponents, and there are a whole bunch of other math stuff that you can do. So we'll do velocity times Y. And so that is the equation that Canvas is going to go. Then you need to generate solutions. So you can tell how many solutions you want it to generate or how many potential options there are to give to this question. So I'm going to do 200. That's going to make it pretty safe that if a kid looks over at another kid's screen, they're not going to have the exact same numbers. They'll have the same sort of question. The process will be exactly the same. Their numbers are going to be different, so they can't just simply, write down whatever the other student got. How many decimal places you want the question to go to? You can have it displayed as scientific notation if you want. I normally leave that off just because there's not much of a need for me to do that. Margin type, so they need to either get an absolute answer, so make it match exactly what that number is within this margin of error that you set. So I could set the margin of error to be 5. So let's say the answer that they got was 500. If they put anything between 495 and 505, it's going to mark it as correct. So absolute is just going to simply plus or minus that number. If you have a really big range of numbers like we do here, 1 to 1,000, that's probably not going to be the most fair option. So then you could do percent. So it's now within plus or minus 5% of whatever the number was supposed to be. So if they were supposed to get 100 for the answer, 95 to 105 would work. Or if they were supposed to get 1,000 as the answer, 950 to 1,050. Then you can hit generate, and it's going to show all of the options that the students will have to get. So like, for example, one student might get negative 1.8 and 507.7. And so the answer they should get, according to the math, would be 913.86, but it's going to grade within 5% of that answer. So again, up or down is going to grade within there. So we're going to hit done. And so this is just, again, giving a sample. So students are just going to see a product of negative 5.7 and 167.74. It doesn't tell them that it randomly generated the numbers. So if your students don't know, they could look over at somebody else's screen, try to copy an answer, and just get it wrong. So it's up to you if you want to tell them that they generated random numbers or not. Hotspot, this one's really cool. So this one, you need to insert a picture. So I'm going to say, click on the diagram where the heart is located. And earlier I downloaded a picture of like an anatomical person thing. So we've got to look and find it in our computer. So I downloaded this picture. So we're going to hit open. Let's go upload this picture in here. So you've got this hotspot is where exactly you want them to click. So obviously the heart, is right here. So you can draw it as a square. So I would want to draw the square as something like that. And maybe go a little bit over. So as long as the student clicks anywhere within that blue square, it is going to be correct and mark it as right. If they click literally anywhere outside of that blue square, it's going to be wrong. So that would work great for that. But let's say I wanted them to do something like find the liver. Well, the liver is right here. But if I do the square, in order to get the whole liver, I've got pretty much the whole stomach too. Just that little bit of stomach is outside of it. So we could do an oval. And an oval may help eliminate some of that, but we're still going to have some there. So then you can also do the polygon. And the polygon will let you click. And every time you click, it's going to change where it goes. So I'm going to go to like each part of the border, trying to get as much of the liver in without getting anything else. And it looks like this will be the last one. So when you're done, you double click, and there we go. So anywhere within that screen, now there's very little of the stomach in there. I probably don't have to worry about them clicking on the lung. So you can go through and do that. So I'm going to change this to liver, just to make it match. And so again, anywhere within that blue that they click, it's going to mark it as correct. Again, same options here. So we'll hit done. And so they're going to see clicking on the diagram where it's located. It's obviously not going to give them that blue box. That's just to show you the key, basically. Then we've got matching. Matching's pretty simple and straightforward. So match the numbers with their words. So we'll say we have the number 1, and obviously that's spelled O-N-E. We could do 34, and that's going to be 34. And you can add as many of these as you want. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. You can also put in distractors, so things that don't actually tie in. Again, this will keep students from, just going through process of elimination to figure things out, and kind of make sure they actually know it if you want them in there. So I can put something in here like 74, if I could spell 74. That would be a distractor. It's going to pop up as an option. That obviously is not one of the things. If you need to add more question answer pairs, you can add it there, and another one's going to show up. You can, again, show on screen calculator. If you wanted to shuffle questions, you can check this box, and it's going to automatically shuffle. There is a setting that we'll get to here in a second, or in the next video, that will automatically shuffle everything. But if you don't have that setting checked for the entire quiz overall, this will always shuffle the question regardless of whether the entire quiz shuffles or not. And then for grading, either partial credit or an exact match. So exact match means it's literally all or nothing. Usually for matching, that's not great. We usually prefer partial credit. So it'll give them, if they got half of the things correct, it'll give them half of the points. So we'll hit down there. And so it'll show up for the students as having those drop-down boxes there. Multiple answer. This is multiple choice, but where you have multiple correct answers. So which are colors of the rainbow? So we'll do red. Let's say we'll do brown here, green, and black. So red and green are the only options here. So I'm going to uncheck brown, check green. We can shuffle choices again, and this one is going to work a little bit differently because when I check this, we've got these lock positions where it says lock distractor positions. It doesn't actually have to be distractors. It could be the answers. So if you ever want an option to stay in that same place, you want to click that lock. So maybe I want green to always stay in the third place for whatever reason. So I'm going to hit lock distractor position, and now every time that this question gets shuffled, green is always going to be in this place. So ironically, if maybe you wanted all of these to stay in the same place, and later on you select the setting to shuffle all of the answers for a quiz, you can just simply, but you don't want any of these to change, you just lock all of them down, and even though the quiz is going to try to shuffle all of the answers on all of the questions, it knows red is always going to be the first option here, brown is always the second, green's always the third, black's always the fourth. So maybe you have like a number kind of thing, and you don't want to give it away with how it's ordered or something like that, so you want it to be nice and easy, or you have a picture and you want them to select A, B, C, or D, and you don't want it to be all confusing where A is C and option D is B. You can lock those all down. Again, partial credit or exact match, however it is you want to set it, our point value, and done. Multiple choice works the pretty much exact same way as that. You type in your answer, so let's say which pumps blood through the body. So we have, let's say, lungs, heart, and stomach. Get rid of that. We know the heart is the right answer, so we'll click on heart. We can shuffle our choices. Again, we can lock stuff down if we want. So maybe we wanted to add in all of the above. All of the above obviously won't work if this is on the top option. Like, kids will probably know what it means, but you're still going to have those kids be uncertain. So we can lock it, and now it's always going to be at the very bottom. So we can hit down there. Multiple choice is pretty basic. Numeric, this is also a pretty basic one. So let's say what year was, let's see, what year was 9/11? Since that is now a history thing, it makes me feel old. So the answer, of course, is going to be for 9/11 was 2001. You can have it as an exact response if you want to give them a margin of error. So maybe this was a math question or something instead. You could give it either as a percent or absolute, just like you could in the formula question, within a range. So maybe I'm going to let them pick anything between the year 2000 and the year 2002. Again, for years, you probably don't want to do a range. And it's only going to allow them to do just one number. So if you're trying to be like, what years what's the Civil War going on for? They're only going to be able to type in one number. So you can't be like, oh, from 18, whatever it was, 18, whatever else it was too. So exact response or precise response if you're wanting significant digits. So for those of you who do science and you need sig figs, it can really get that down. If you're just looking for what the number is, though, you just type that in there. Next up is ordering. So this is, ordering from greatest to least, biggest to smallest, however it is you want to have it labeled. So label or order the wavelengths of light from shortest to longest. And it lets you actually put in the labels there so that students don't accidentally do it in reverse. So I can have the shortest up here, the longest down here, and we can type in our answers in order. So for shortest, maybe we'll do gamma as the absolute shortest, ultraviolet, and then visible, and radio waves is the longest ones. You can add answers if you want, take them out. If you put things in the wrong order and you don't want to retype, you can just grab the little dots here and move them around. So I could move ultraviolet down to the bottom if I put it in the wrong place, move it back up if, oops, I realized one in there. So shortest to longest. Include labels is by default checked. If you do not want those labels to show up though, you can click there, and it's going to make sure that they're actually reading the question so that they know shortest is supposed to be on top. But again, if you want to put the labels in, which I would recommend, you could do that too. Display answers in a paragraph. So it's just going to give them, like maybe you had sentences here instead, and they're supposed to order them for what came first and what came last. Instead of having it as a list, it'll just have it as, a long paragraph thing, and they'll have to order it that way. And then, of course, the calculator. So we'll hit done there. The last kind of question is true or false. Obviously basic thing. So you are taking a test on blackboard. True or false? Hopefully we know that's false. They're taking it on Canvas. That one, of course, is basic, simple, straightforward. The last thing on here that we're going to talk about on this video is stimulus. So if you have, let's say I wanted to use that diagram again, but I wanted to use it for several different things. So you can give it, you do have to give your stimulus a title. This one will show up for sure on the student's end. So we'll call this, again, human body. Instructions are optional if you want to put instructions in there. I normally just throw my instructions in the content area. So this is, again, where students are going to see. This is like the question stem, essentially, except that a stimulus itself is not a question. So we'll say use the diagram below to answer the following questions. And you can insert some kind of media in here. So you could do, we're going to upload that same image that we used before. So we can go and upload that. If you wanted to, though, you could instead, whoops, wrong button. You could instead add in a video. So if you wanted this to be a video question or an audio, maybe your foreign language, and you want them to listen to a recording and answer several questions about the same recording, you could add that in there instead. You have all the same rich content editor stuff that you'd have before. Then for orientation, so there are going to be questions that go along with this stimulus. So you can choose whether you want those questions to show up over to the right. That's always my preference because I usually have a big old diagram over here. And it's just easier, especially on the smaller Chromebook screens. Or you can have the questions show up below, whichever way you decide you want it. Item banking again, so if you want a stimulus to be attached to an item bank, and all those questions that are attached to it as well. So we'll hit done. So there's our stimulus. Now we have to attach questions. So you can either add in new questions, or you can simply drag an existing one. So maybe you added a question and realize, oh, it's going to work great under there. So I'm going to take this, I can click it and drag it. And where it says now, it says drop question here. Where it's over there to the right, it's like within that section. So if I add that in there, now it's going to be attached to this one. If we add attach question, that lets us go in and add another question. So this is a diagram of a human body. True or false? Set up your questions exactly the same way as you would before. We'll hit done. And so now that question is in there. So there are settings where you can shuffle questions around too, but doing the stimulus thing will keep those questions that are supposed to be together, it will keep them together. So Questions 12 and 13, they may flip places, but they're never going to be off, like, as one of them is the first question and the other is the last one. So stimulus are really convenient in that way. Also, when the student is scrolling, it's going to lock this part, when they get to the stimulus part, it's going to lock this part in place. And when they're scrolling through, all of the questions will scroll when they scroll down until they get to the end, and then it'll scroll down below. Whenever you're typing stuff in here too, I didn't mention, it automatically saves, so there is no save button or anything like that. So whenever you're done with everything, there's this return button. You just hit return, and it'll take you out to your normal screen. And so that's how you can set up a quiz within Canvas.